Hello and welcome to Business Daily on Trust Television. I am Chiamaka Nwafo. Let's look at some top stories in the business world. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is Business Daily on Trust Television, reaching you from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Now let's move over to stock report as of yesterday. Close of business as of yesterday, 18th September 2023. Osha index closed at 67,877 plus 17 points, indicating a 0.71 increment, a positive outturn, and it's some people believe this is following actually the appointment of Cardoso as the CBN governor. Then we have the market cap. There was an upward trend. It moved up from from Friday's closing of 36.886 trillion naira to 37.150 trillion naira. That is about 264 billion. Investors gained that yesterday. Now the volume of shares traded yesterday was 515.28 million units of shares that were valued at 8.89 billion naira in 8,357 deals. Of course, we have gainers and losers. Let's look at our gainers. So on our gainers, we have the Nigerian flour mills. It's closed at 14.85 kobo, gaining 10%. Same thing, Owando 10%, same thing, Charms Limited 10%, but Owando closed at 12 naira 10 kobo and Charms Limited closed at 1 naira 21 kobo. Of course, the red table is there. Let's look at our losers. Umatech Limited closed at 0 naira 36 kobo, losing 10%. Sky Aviation at 25 naira 35 kobo, losing 9.95%, and Better Glass Limited at 46 naira 70 kobo, losing 9.93%. Of course, we're going to go to the trades. Now you can see that UBA had the most trade at 109 million shares. Transcorp International at 42 million shares followed next, and Access Core Corporation actually at 40 million shares. Those are the three major traders as of yesterday. Now, how did that affect these sectors? Of course, in our top traders, the banking sector were among the top three, and of course, NGX Banking should, highlight that, and so it closed at plus 1.43%. Now, NGX Industrial had a negative experience. It closed at minus 0.06%. NGX Consumer Goods went up at 0.16%. The NGX Oil and Gas, went at 0.38%. And we have NGX Insurance at 0.14% going upwards. Now, what's happening on the African continent? Johannesburg Stock Exchange had an upward trend closing at 0.16%, while the Ghana Stock Exchange equally had an upward trend closing at 0.03%. Now, the Nairobi Stock Exchange didn't have such a very good turnout. It went down negative, closing at minus 0.56%. Now, that's the much we have for you on Stock Update. Don't go away. We'll be right back thinking and talking about businesses in Nigeria and how they can be impacted by policies. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is still Business Daily on Trust Television, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. And if you're just joining us. Now, we want to look at something today. It's about business, growing business in Nigeria, and policies that affected. Now, Nigeria has struggled with its ease of doing business rankings from 2011 to 2020, consistently ranking poorly among nearly 190 countries. In an effort to improve the business environment, the previous administration introduced the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PEBEC, and enacted various business-friendly laws. Now, however, those challenges persisted, including, of course, foreign currency shortages, complex taxation, and regulatory hurdles. Now, we have a new administration, and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when he took office in May 2023, outlined key economic policies to enhance the business environment. Now, they broaden 4 different major things: foreign exchange, repatriation, taxation, and of course the big one, energy, electricity. Now, with me in the studio to go further into this discuss is Faiz M. Ali. He's a policy analyst, and we'll be looking at these policies and how they affect businesses generally. So I'm going to go into the things that our president said on the 29th of May 2023, the summarized version. He says, for foreign exchange, the president aims to achieve a unified foreign exchange rate through the Central Bank of Nigeria, which could reduce exchange disparities. Yes. Now, for repatriation, we had that issue. Emirates had to stop, because they couldn't get their funds. Now, to attract foreign investment, the president also pledged to ensure that foreign investors can repatriate their profits and dividends. Now, taxation. There are multiple taxations, and people were crying out about it. And the president said he will address complaints about multiple taxation and anti-investment measures to create a more investor-friendly tax environment. Finally, the big one: energy, electricity. And we've seen the first of the removal, it's not even made things easy. He says effort to be made to improve electricity accessibility and affordability, potentially involving states in power generation. Now, Faiz, you're the policy analyst. Help me analyze that.
I think specifically when it came to the president's statement about subsidy removal, that I think could be considered a little bit of a gaffe. It was a bit too early in the presidency. It was on the inauguration day itself that he made that announcement, and it caused a little bit of an uproar within the oil and gas industry, because there were considerations that had to be taken before a subsidy removal could be put in place. Regarding the rest of his policy pronouncements, I think they instituted a little bit of caution, but cautious optimism really among the investment circle, because they indicated that this was a government that was forward thinking and that was looking to shore up the specific problems that had kept Nigeria's economy on the back burner for quite some time.
Okay, so now we first of all, the World Bank has stopped doing the ease of doing business ranking at 2020. So would I say it's safe to say that we ended poorly, because we wouldn't know, but hopefully we've gotten better, hopefully. And but there's so many things that are required in the country to start a business. Right. And I would want us to look at the Companies and Allies Matters Act, the Companies Income Tax Act, the Value Added Tax Act, the withholding. Everything is about tax institutions. Right. Do these things, over close to 10 or over 10 of them, do they hamper the ease of doing business? Do you necessarily need to go through all that route before you can do business properly and, of course, make profit?
I think this is one of the challenges of Nigeria's regulatory environment, really. I would say that not every business would have to go through every single organization in order to obtain licenses in order to do business, but a protracted and overly complex business regulatory environment obviously makes it much more difficult for businesses to register, to gain approval, to set up various manufacturing industries. And so, being in a situation where we have such an environment, it does behoove the president to create avenues through which we can ease these particular taxations and make it much more simplified for businesses to access either tax credits or access avenues through which these particular tax avenues are easy for them to get by.
So now we have our world rankings. I'm going to take us back to 2011 to 2020.
Right.
Now, do you think that those rankings, how did it directly? Because of course, I'm just going to look at it and say, oh, well, this country's not so great to do business in. Do you actually think it had that much impact? Because we're looking at it now, we have foreign companies leaving.
Yeah.
And so so what happened between 2011 and 2020? And has there been any change from that time till now?
It's had a very great effect on foreign direct investment, specifically within Nigeria, and it's made it very difficult to attract foreign investment into the country. Now, there are two things really that have been causing this. The first is a certain level of uncertainty, and not having certainty as to the positive results that may have been yielded from the government's ease of doing business reforms and the reforms regarding the business sector makes it much more difficult for foreign investors or businesses to ascertain whether or not any of these policies are good for their businesses. And that makes them far more cautious in taking the risk that comes with being in Nigeria. Secondly, with the ease of doing business rankings having been reduced in Nigeria, we also lose what is known as the benchmark rankings. And that is a very valuable tool for foreign investors to use to compare Nigeria's business environment with other countries of a similar size and demography. Now, not having this much information makes it very difficult for a foreign investor to say, this is an environment in which I can assume a certain level of risk. And so that has led to a lot of companies being very cautious with investing in Nigeria. It's led to a lot of investors divesting from Nigeria, from their holdings in Nigeria, and it's generally made for a more uncertain business environment over the past several years. Okay.
Now, we earlier talked about the four things that our president said economic-wise. Now, let's narrow it down to the MSMEs and, of course, to the foreign direct investment, because that, of course, helps our, forex and all that, money coming in, that. So, can you tell us how, the potential implications for MSMEs and foreign investors from those four major economic policies that he made on 29th of May 2023?
I think if we're following through on those particular policies, it does indicate that he's looking to shore up the gains that Nigeria has made regarding the ease of doing business. Because the establishment of the PEBC has led to pivotal changes with regards streamlining business processes all across the country, particularly when you look at the ease of business registration, for example.
Yes, the CAC become very easy. It became 5,000 or something for a while.
Exactly, not just on monetary level, but also the fact that there are online platforms with practically every government-affiliated organization now makes it much more easier for businesses to gain approvals and get their business registered very quickly. A consequence of that has also been that there's been a reduction in a lot of bureaucratic red tape that has typically characterize the Nigerian business regulatory environment. Now, having all of that removed makes it very easy for MSMEs to both register.
Sorry, just to cut you a bit. You say there's been removal of bureaucratic.
No, there's been a reduction.
Because I don't think the person on the street down there who has to pay, tax to some guy every 5 minutes or every 1 hour or something because she has a small split, she's sitting on the floor to sell her market, understands.
Again, I think it's very important to state that the different taxations that are paid depend specifically on the type of business that one is running. So it is not a situation whereby all the various tax and regulatory regimes apply to every single business. They apply to specific businesses in their specific sectors.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, you're saying so different sectors have different taxes.
Yes.
Now that will bring us down to multiple taxation. So reading up, you hear that certain businesses get to pay their tax to the local government.
Yes.
Then certain businesses get to pay their tax to the state government. Certain businesses get to pay their tax to the federal government. And if a company, eventually I own a company tomorrow, doing very well and have branches in different states, those branches get to pay their tax in to the state level.
Yes.
But then, if this is so clear-cut, why is there still the multiple taxation? And how are we paying for the same thing over and over, but in different ways?
No. I don't think there's any indication that it's been very clear-cut. What is clear-cut is that it's very clear how many different types of taxation that there are. Now, one of the challenges this government is going to have to face is reducing the level of taxation at every level. State governments, local governments, federal government are all going to have different levels of taxation, and each one has different reasons for having those levels of taxation in order to create revenue. Now, the challenge for this government is going to be how can they find a way to work with the different state governments and their local authorities to reduce tax burdens on small and medium businesses. I would argue that progress has been made over the past several years, although there is still much to be done.
Okay, now you're the policy analyst. MPC is coming up, and we know that these things affect businesses. We're going to talk about the interest rates and everything now. But someone out there who doesn't really know, he just hears, oh, inflation, interest rates has been 0.5 basis points. Can you further explain this to us? How do these things actually affect them in the long run, affect the business in the long run?
They affect businesses primarily by determining how quickly and how efficiently they can access credit. An increased interest rate means that your ability to access credit now depends on the valuation of your company. It also affects just how quickly you're going to be able to pay back that credit. And the number one thing that really stifles small and medium industry in this country is a lack of access to capital. So that access to credit is critical, especially for startups and small businesses at their initial stages. So interest rates specifically have a very concomitant effect on the ability of small and medium enterprises to grow their businesses. And having an increased interest rate or having an increase in the index price makes it either harder or easier, usually harder in Nigeria's case, for these businesses to access that credit.
So you were saying something about tax, reducing the tax. While reading up yesterday for the inflation story, it came about the information that says high income tax is supposed to help reduce inflation. Now, how does that work? And so I know there are different taxes: personal income, company income tax. So what income tax exactly? Because it's apparently less spending, less inflation. How do we get people to spend less? Seeing as we're a country that likes to flange, and how do we do that? How do we get that? Then how does income tax increment, actually help to reduce inflation?
Income tax helps reduce inflation because inflation increases as purchasing power also increases. So the more people are able to buy, the more people they're able to consume, the more businesses are increasing their prices in order to increase profit. Now, if you have a reduced level of consumer spending, you will automatically have a concomitant reduction of inflation.
Okay, so I'm a bit bewildered by that statement.
Yes.
So if I'm going to see from maybe a layman's term, you're saying that, are you saying we don't want businesses to do well and also we don't have inflation? Because that's what it sounds like to me.
No. You definitely want businesses to be able to grow, but you want them to be able to grow at a proper rate, to be able to grow at a, shall we say, not at an inflationary rate. That's probably it. Because if they grow too fast, that reduces the ability of the business environment to be able to take in all of the inflow. But if they're growing at a steady rate, then it allows for the business environment to be able to regulate just how much is coming in.
Now, what's your take and what do you think we should expect from this MPC meeting coming up in a couple of days or a few days' time? This month, the particular date is not known, but what do you expect to come out from this MPC meeting?
I think it's a bit too early to make assumptions of what may or may not come out. The regulatory environment under the new administration is going to see a lot of changes. I believe there's going to be more capital intensive investment. I believe that we're going to see the president make a lot of changes with regards to ease of doing business, especially for small and medium enterprises. And so it's going to take some time for us to really have a clear picture of what it is that we're going to see moving forward.
All right, thank you, Faiz Ali, for your time here with us. It's been quite an interesting conversation and, you know, quite educating one as well. Thank you for joining us on Business Daily today.
Thank you very
That's
much.
the much we have for you today on Business Daily. We hope we've helped you make good business ideas and learned one or two things. But before we let you go today, do not forget to follow us on our social media platforms and catch us on more programs like this on our live stream on YouTube and on our website trusttv.com. See you again tomorrow, same time, same place on Trust Television, Abuja, Nigeria. I am Chiamaka Nwafor. Stay safe, spend wisely.